Look at that. Oreo bringing back its cakesters, taking over the
Thank you very much for joining us here on Fox 9 as we get you ready for a press conference from Vikings owner Mark Wilf in the wake of the news that Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman have been let go by the Vikings organization as the Vikings now look for new leadership moving into the future. Thank you for joining us. I'm Hobie Artigue, along with Fox 9's Jim Rich, Dawn Mitchell, and Pierre Nugent. And guys, as we wait for this press conference to begin at right around 1 o'clock, what are your overall thoughts on the situation unfolding over in Eagan?
Well, I guess I'll start us off, Hobie. I think last night when we were talking about it on Vikings postgame tonight, Jim and I were with Pete Bursich and Greg Coleman, and Greg kind of pointed out to both of us saying that he kind of noticed in Mike Zimmer's, just the way he looked, the look in his eye, he just noticed he seemed like he was a little tired. It's been a long season, with the whole start of the season with the whole COVID fiasco spreading throughout the team and players getting vaccinated, not getting vaccinated, I think weighed on him. And Greg Coleman was the one to point out that it was just seemed like it was a lot riding on Mike Zimmer's shoulders, and yesterday it finally broke, and I don't think anybody's surprised by the news today.
If I can jump on that too, Pierre, yesterday down on the field, Mike was doing things that he had never really done before a game. He took time to sit on the bench and as if to take it all in. And I know people thought, oh, you're being too poignant, Dawn, or you're making something out of nothing. It's all, he knew. Any coach that's in this position and he knows how the game goes, he knows what could happen come on Monday. It could have even happened yesterday, but he was waiting for word from the team. But then at the end of the game, you saw he got a picture with his son, then he got one with he and Andre Patterson, and you just knew it was coming full circle, even waving to the crowd. Jimmy, you had it last night on the show too. The video speaks volumes in a situation like this that sometimes words can't even say.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he knew what was coming down the pipe. I met with him this morning to talk about doing a television interview today, and he said, I'm just not in the right frame of mind to do that yet. But what he said was he's disappointed, but he is pleased with what he did here with the Vikings, that he knew he gave it his all throughout. He was quiet again this morning when I spoke with him, and we chatted about where things went wrong, and we're going to keep that off the record, so to speak, for now. But he did say that, he appreciated what he did here. What his future is, he's not sure. He's going to head back to Kentucky, go to Zimmer Ridge Ranch, hang out there for a while and try to sort things out, whether he retires from here or if he decides to get back into the coaching. He says he's going to take this time to sort that all out. But yeah, I think deep down he knew that they were at the end of the leash and they needed to be a playoff team this year. And Hobie, it just didn't come out and turn out the way he wanted and the rest of the team.
And they got close once again this season, but that's back-to-back years where this Vikings team has finished below 500. In fact, at no point over the last two seasons has this team been a 500-plus type of football team. So the question moving forward is for whomever steps into this role, they're prevalent because there are answers on both the roster, but also from a GM perspective, that guy is going to have to also get a head coach. It's not just one guy that we're replacing right now. So Pierre, I guess starting off with you, how would you define the task at hand for the Vikings as they try to pave this way forward?
Well, I think you and I have a little bit of an answer to that. As Hobie, you and I upstairs, we were talking about how this team has some real salary cap gymnastics that they have
absolutely.
to go through, and that is really, I think, priority number one. What are you going to do with some of the money that's available or lack thereof for the Minnesota Vikings? And that's something for whoever the new GM that is hired. They're really going to have to restructure how this team is put together financially. There's a lot of money committed to Kirk Cousins, obviously, and that's really where it's going to start. And it might have to be, you're going to have to look around this route. Who can we cut? What kind of cap hits are we going to be taking? Who could we possibly trade? And now I'm hearing with the Wilf family actually is heading to the podium after today's news of Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman both being fired. Let's head out to the podium for the Wilf family making their first public comments since today's news in the morning.
It's important that we all met with our players, our leadership council, our coaching staff, our football operations, and our entire front office. It's a difficult day because of the relationships we have with Coach Zimmer and Rick. We really thank them for everything that they've done for our organization. They've brought us to a new level. We're a first-class organization, a place that I think any coach or GM will want to come to. And we strongly believe we need new leadership to elevate our football team. And our goal is to consistently contend and win championships. We have a plan for how we're going to move forward. We're going to utilize our relationships and network of resources to make the best possible choice. The process will be methodical, comprehensive, and we're looking for strong leaders, communicators, collaborators. Again, we have tremendous appreciation for our fans, and we want to bring them the championships that they expect and deserve. With that, I'll open up for questions. Thank you.
All right, we'll start with Joe Schmidt, followed by Chad Graff.
Yes, Mark, I'm just wondering, you talked about the process. Who's going to be involved in the process, and what exactly are you looking for? And I would take it you're looking for a GM before you hire a coach. Would that be correct?
Yes, Joe, good to see you. That is correct. We're gonna start out. Both searches are starting right away, but the GM is going to be our first selection, and then the GM will have input in the head coach. But we've begun our process right away. Like I said, it's an internal process, and it's something we have great football operations people here in the building, and we're going to lean on them as well as our relationships in the league and elsewhere. So the process has already begun, and we know there are a lot of good candidates, and at the same time, we know that this is a highly desirable place for people to be. We have a great core of talent, a great facilities, a great fan base, great communities. So we're confident we're on a good process, and we've already gotten started on that work.
Mark, as you make these changes to the top two positions, would you call this kind of a traditional full rebuild, or what would you say the expectations are for 2022?
Again, I don't want to get into a full rebuild conversation. Our point is we have high expectations for this football team. We believe we can be super competitive right here in 2022. This is not in that mode of a full rebuild. Again, we believe we have a strong foundation here on the field and around the building. So I wouldn't classify it as that. Again, we looked at our football team in its entirety, and as much as a difficult decision as it was, we feel it's the time and place to go in a different direction and get us to the next level, which is where we all want to be.
Right, Dave Campbell, followed by Courtney Cronin.
Hi, Mark. I'm just wondering at what point this season or recently that became clear that you needed to make the change in both of those areas.
Well, Dave, clearly it's been, this is not a situation where we do things in a knee-jerk fashion. We're very proud of the fact that we, as an ownership, try to think long-term. We know we want to be consistent, but at the same time, we evaluated where we've been at. A lot of factors go into it. We evaluated not just this season, but a whole body of work. There's no one person that's responsible, but we're clearly disappointed in the football results this year. And over the course of the past few weeks, this is something we've been thinking and deliberating quite a bit on. And over this past week, we kind of finalized this direction that we're beginning on now.
Mark, the Wilf ownership group has poured a lot of resources into making this roster as good as it can possibly be. And I'm wondering, after the amount of resources you guys poured into the defense this side of this year to try to get it back to where it was a couple of years ago, how disappointing was it that it was never able to get back to where it was when it was the #1 unit and carrying this team?
Well, listen, the results speak for themselves. We're not satisfied. It's not where we want to be. But again, we have an excellent organization. We have great components of a roster here to build on. So I think any coach and GM knows there's something to build off here. And again, we're fully committed as owners to providing the resources to make sure we can keep competing year in and year out at the highest levels and try to get championships. So yes, it's been disappointing, and not about defense or offense, but the overall results for sure are not what we expect and what we want. So that's the spirit we made this decision. And I think the fans and people that care about the Minnesota Vikings, we as ownership want to make them proud. We want them to have championships that they deserve, and that's kind of what led us to the decision. And it's not about one side of the ball or one individual or another, but we just feel a change of direction was needed here.
Let's go with Arif, followed by Matthew.
Hi, what led to the decision to lead the search internally as opposed to hiring a search firm?
Well, again, like I said, we know the people in this building. We have a lot of confidence in the football IQ of this building, and there's a lot of great scouts, great operations people, people that know how to hire, and so we're confident in that. And again, getting back to Rick and Mike, it's not about any individuals, because we are in a better place as an organization because of their work, but we're just trying to elevate off this foundation we have here and get to the next level. So we do feel we have the resources here to do the search internally. We know we're not, as ownership, making the decision ourselves. We have a lot of great input with a lot of great thought going into it from around this building and around the league. And that's how we're going to make this decision. And we're going to be thoughtful about it. We're not going to rush to it. We're going to be deliberate. We're going to be thorough. We're not going to say we have to have this or we have to have that. We want to get people that are great communicators, great leaders, that know how to create a culture that people can thrive on the field, off the field, all around. So that's how we're going about this.
Hi, Mark. Just wanted to ask where the quarterback decision for the future fits in with interviews for general manager, interviews for coach, and how much input you're going to have yourself as ownership. Like if you have kind of a direction that you want it to go and you want that to align with the people that you hire.
Well, we as ownership, I think, hopefully we know what we don't know, and we're going to leave it to, we're going to make sure we hire the right people as general manager and head coach, and they're the ones that are going to really get the proper input, give us the evaluation, give us their advice and thinking before we make any of those decisions. So first things first is we got to get the new leadership in place at the Vikings here in the relatively near future, but not to rush it, but we want to be deliberate about it. But at that point, once that leadership's in place, we'll discuss things like roster and coaching staffs and scouting staffs and all the rest. But first, we got to get our leadership in place. And like I said, we've begun that process right away. And again, we want to elevate our team. We have high expectations, and we want to create sustained success. That's always been our goal, and we're going to keep at it.
All right, Ben Gessling, Sam Ekstrom.
Yeah, Mark, you guys have put an emphasis on diversity and trying to diversify your staff in a lot of ways over the last couple of years. As you get the opportunity now to kind of rethink your football staff, how important is it going to be to get a diverse set of candidates in the room for interviews and to think about that as you go through your process? Well,
we're certainly proud of our support of the Rooney Rule and all the diversity rules. I think that direction is something the league should be going in, and we embrace that. And like I said, we want to have the highest expectations for our GM and coach, and that includes making sure the net is cast wide. That includes diversity, includes all kinds of background, it includes all kinds of experience. So we're not limiting, and we certainly embrace, and we're very proud of our track record, and we're going to continue to be elevating where we can in that area.
Hey, Mark, even since hiring Mike Zimmer, the league seems to be heading in a much more offensive direction, very passing oriented, very analytics driven in a lot of the decision making. I guess, how do you take all of that into account as you look to make these new hires?
Well, there are a million factors that go into it, but let me just go back to what I said earlier. We want strong leaders. We want people that communicate and collaborate around the building. And from that, we're going to get the right minds, the right offensive minds, the right defensive minds, the right scouting. So that's the spirit we're doing this in, and that's our first criteria, getting the right kind of leaders that our players can relate to, our fans can relate to. So it's not a simple question, but I know we're going to get there.
Okay, we'll go to Mike Max, followed by Chris Thomason. Chris, why don't you go ahead? We'll come back to Mike.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, just first a real quick question, then maybe I can have a follow. Is everybody else remaining intact on staff, including Adam Zimmer?
Yeah, as far, again, we have different coaches and staff that are under contract, and right now, as far as today goes, we're just talking about Coach Zimmer and Rick. Our coaching staff, everyone who remains under contract is under contract. But again, our focus is on a new head coach, a new general manager, and those decisions on everyone else will have to be working together with that leadership. But right now, we have pretty much everyone under contract, mostly, and that's how we'll go from here.
And then my follow-up.
Well, that's Vikings owner Mark Wilf speaking about the departures of Mike Zimmer and also Rick Spielman as the team moves forward without that pair at the helm. They'd been here for quite a long time, 8 seasons total together. That's it for us on Fox 9, but for more coverage, you can switch it over to fox9.com and our Fox 9 YouTube page as we continue this conversation as the Vikings move forward into the future. Guys, you just heard Mark Wilf right there. The key word in that press conference right there, elevate, in my opinion. And this is for a team that was on the cusp of reaching a Super Bowl just 4 seasons ago. Jim, what do you think elevation looks like for this team that does have a lot of pieces, but like Pierre said earlier, is really pressed up against the cap?
Well, I think we have to go back to 4 years ago, Hobie. That's where this franchise turned. They stepped forward and put out the biggest contract in NFL history to Kirk Cousins. It was the first ever fully guaranteed contract. And that changed the dynamics of this entire organization, because you look at that kind of money that he's sitting on and the $45 million that he's due next year that takes up 21% of the cap. That seems a bit outrageous for a quarterback that's not a consistent winner. He fills the stat books. We've seen that time after time. But you look at the money that they have tied up, he's almost double Danielle Hunter. And there's another player that may be under the gun of new management, whether they want to pay that much to a player who's now basically appeared in 2 games in the last 2 years. So there's so many things. But getting back to the Cousins point, this is where the franchise changed, because Zimmer had built this as a defensive, hard-nosed football team. And he had a lot of depth. Now, he was asked, Mark Wilf, about the money that they spent on the defense, and it didn't come to fruition this year. But there wasn't the depth of the defense. As soon as Danielle Hunter, Everson Griffin went out, Patrick Peterson was gone for a while. Those players missing, the backups were a huge step down. And I think that's why this defense really fell apart. So the move to Cousins was saying we need offense. We think that's what we're missing to get to the Super Bowl after the Philly flop. And it just didn't work. And that's why we're here today. And those 2 gentlemen are now out of a job.
If I may jump in, I think one of the interesting points that Mark Wilf said when he was asked directly about Kirk Cousins, he didn't say, yes, he's our quarterback of the future, did he? He had every opportunity to say that. He said he will leave that decision to the new GM and the head coach. And I think, Jim, that speaks volumes as to what you were just saying. They're also a business, and they've been watching this for a while now. This is not a knee-jerk reaction to get rid of their GM and their head coach. And yes, they did, in a nice, classy way, say thank you for building this foundation. But you can't have a foundation and have it top heavy when it comes to money like that. So I would not be surprised, and I don't know about you, Pierre, if in the future we see we asked last night, we asked Kirk if he would take a restructured contract. He didn't want to get into that, but it seems that something has to be done now in addition to a new GM and head coach.
Yeah, and a lot of people are talking about the money in the cap, situation that, is revolved around Kirk Cousins. And hey, listen, if somebody's putting a big-time contract in front of my face the way Kirk Cousins was put, I'm putting my name on the dotted line as well. So, the player is going to take the money. It's the organization that came up with the idea to give that kind of guaranteed money to the quarterback. And like Jim was saying, you've now put yourself in the situation that you're in right now. So, the ire, from my perspective anyway, is more drawn at management that made that decision and not the player who made the smart business choice to make that decision. And the one thing that stuck out for me when we were listening to Mark Wilf just a moment ago is he said in 2022, from what it sounded like, this is not going to be a rebuild. He expects to be competitive. He expects this team to be competitive. When you look at the talent on this roster, there's no reason to believe why they can't be competitive with the right head coach at the helm. But, there is such a gap between this team and the team across the border over in Wisconsin. When you're looking at trying to win this division first and foremost, and I know Aaron Rodgers is the difference maker there, but Hobie, when you look at this team, there's talent, but they've got a ways to go here and not a lot of money to spend as of right now in trying to get there.
And it's talent that needs to be harnessed in a proper way, especially on offense. I think that's something that people really wanted to see this season. You have an offense with a good quarterback who you're paying a lot of money. You have a breakout wide receiver. You have one of the best running backs in the game. You have a great wide receiver in Adam Thielen, but it just never seemed to click consistently. I think that was a key, especially on offense this season. But Pierre, he was also asked, do you want to go in a more offensive direction whenever you just had a defensive coach? And we'll pull it up. There are now multiple job openings in the NFL right now. It's not just the Vikings that are going to be looking for a head coach. It's 6 teams across the NFL after today, with the Bears parting ways with Matt Nagy and also the Dolphins parting ways with Brian Flores. But you look at those situations right there, and we keep bringing up the cap. Right now, the Vikings are the only team of those 6 that are over the cap at this point in time. The others have $40+ million to work with. So I'm curious as to how maybe that factors in. And you heard him say that this is a desirable job. It's one of 32 NFL positions that coaches would love to be in right now. I just think, where do you put the emphasis of the Vikings job compared to some of those others whenever you factor those pieces in, Jim?
Well, if you looked at what's there, if you want to come in and be a guy that's going to be able to put his fingerprints on an organization right away, you'd go to one of those jobs that have the $40 million in cash. You come here and you have to be in stride with what was being built here and say, yeah, I can get this to where they want to go. We just need to tweak this and that. So it depends on how a GM, potential GM, looks at this situation, looks at this franchise and thinks, this isn't going to work. It's a complete disaster. They're going to tear it down. The salary cap is going to crush them for years. Or you say, hey, with X, Y, Z, these guys are just a player or two or the right coaching strategies away from being a winner and challenging Green Bay. I want this job. So the perception by the Mark Wilf is that, yes, this is one of the best franchise, one of the best jobs out there. You'll have to see what the prospective candidates think about it.
Dawn, you think that this is one of the best, if not the best job available? Whenever you look at what is out there right now?
Let me tell you, there are a lot of resources that the Wilfs are about to throw into place. And around the league, when I talk to different coaches and assistants around the way, they say everything that people want is right here. We wanted a practice facility, they gave them practice facility, right? Yeah, let's even go back. When you wanted Favre, they gave you Favre, right? They go out and get what you need. And I think the key point that Mark Wilf did say is, listen, we want someone that can communicate and collaborate around the building. And so if we're looking at like the thorn that was in the side of Mike Zimmer, it's his offensive coordinators, okay? So you can look at the pieces too, but let's take a look at what has really kind of hurt. I mean, 2 times, yes, amazing offensive coordinators. They both went to head coaching positions. But let's look at the history under the offensive side of the ball for a defensive-minded head coach. And it's been a difficult one. I know that we've got a graphic on it. And it starts, of course, with Norv Turner. Back in 2014, He was through to 2016, but that did not go well. As a matter of fact, he just out and out quit. So you have Norv Turner who quit, right? So we can just put a boom if you want next to that. And then you have Pat Shurmur who came in lights out. As a matter of fact, he is the most successful offensive coordinator in Vikings history. But after his one season, he went and took that head coaching job out in New York. So now you got to start over, right? So then you bring in John DeFilippo. Now, sources say he and Mike Zimmer butted heads. They didn't get along, or maybe he wasn't quite up for the task. Was there communication and collaboration around the building? We don't know. But he was gone after a tough season, 8-7-1. And he was fired basically after that loss to Seattle. Kevin Stefanski, we all know what happened there. Again, on the rise, right? They make it again to the playoffs. But he leaves after one successful season, even though he was with the franchise for eons, the longest tenured staff member at one point. Now he's the Browns head coach. Now you bring in the last 2 years that may have been offensively the demise, also going hand in hand with Kirk Cousins, Gary Kubiak and Clint Kubiak. Okay, we know Gary retired and the reins were handed over to Clint. Now, when you look at that, I don't know if you want to say Clint will be fired. He's still under contract. I'm not saying that he is. But when you look at that, and then they were the third least successful, Clint was, and his dad was the second least successful offensive coordinator in history. So you have a defensive-minded coach, and then you've got a litany of offensive coordinators. So, you know, you talk about synergy on both sides of the ball when it comes to the game plan. You need that in your coaching staff, and I think that's something that they're going to be looking at forward as well. You need people that can be on the same page and perhaps not butting heads, or let's get everyone together. And it's interesting, too, that they're not going to a national firm outside of the team, that they feel like they have the people inside the building, which may say, I know they opened up the coaching search, but they may already have a small short list already of who they want to go after for GM. So things to be looking for. The Wolves have tended to roll things pretty fast. I mean, they found Mike Zimmer in, 2 weeks or something last time, if I recall correctly. So it'll be interesting to see how this moves forward on all fronts.
Pierre, you and I talk a lot, Pierre, off camera about this is an offense-driven league. I think that's no secret in the National Football League. Whenever you see the teams that are going to the Super Bowl, that are winning the Super Bowl, you look across the border, as you said, with Aaron Rodgers leading the pack over there. Do you think that this is a team that needs to build on offense and kind of go the rest of the way as the NFL is going right now?
I think that's a tough question. My initial gut reaction is yes, I do. But, you know, when you're looking for a new head coach, I think a lot of candidates, when you look around the National Football League, their first question is, okay, who's my quarterback? Yep. And then when you look at Minnesota and you say, okay, Kirk Cousins is the quarterback there, do I want to inherit that? And when you look at some of the jobs around the league right now, like you brought up some of those teams and some of the openings that are around the league right now with teams with money to spend. Trevor Lawrence you have on a rookie contract. Tua Tagovailoa you have on a rookie contract. The Broncos don't know what they're going to do at quarterback right now, but are they going to be in pursuit of Aaron Rodgers in the offseason like we've heard kind of them rumored to be? The Bears, Justin Fields, rookie contract. Now you have to make a decision and look at those rookie quarterbacks and second-year quarterback in Tua's situation. Are these guys really guys? Have they shown me enough to make me believe that they will be cornerstone pieces moving forward? And if the answer to that is yes, then I think if I'm a coach looking for, especially a lot of guys who might be a first-time head coach, I might go to a team that has money to spend and a rookie quarterback and grow with that team. Trevor Lawrence is the obvious candidate down there in Jacksonville. I would take a long, hard look. And I know people might say, well, the Jaguars are a more bound franchise in the NFL. You know, they've been disastrous year in and year out. They sure did. You're not wrong about that. You know, you're not wrong about that at all. You're exactly right. So I would take it. If I'm looking at Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence is the most appealing piece in this entire situation for me. But when you're looking at Minnesota, they're the team that's probably, as of all those teams on paper right there, they're the team that arguably is the team that is built to win now the most. The Raiders are in the playoffs, yes. Miami has a spectacular defense, and they have the most money to spend in the offseason. The question is, do you want to hitch your wagon to Tua? That's a question that a candidate would have to ask himself. But the Vikings right now, when you look at them on paper, and that's why I can understand why Mark Wilf is saying this is a team that I expect to contend in 2022. We just got to make some tweaks. We got to get rid of one or two guys and bring in one or two guys, and maybe things go from 8-9 to maybe 11-6 next year, and suddenly we're in the playoffs.
And we look at the last 4 seasons. You heard Mark Wolf say it too. This was not a knee-jerk type reaction that they brought that was brought upon today. This is the course of over the last few years, especially whenever you look back at the last 4 seasons. This is a Vikings team. We'll pull up the graphic. They've missed the playoffs in 3 of the last 4 years. In 2019, they made it to the playoffs. They beat the Saints once again in the postseason. One of Mike Zimmer's 2 playoff wins, both of them coming against the Saints during his time with the Vikings. But how far off, Jim, do you think this team is from being that consistent, elevated type of team?
Well, this is where you look at, funny, that record that you have up there coincides with Kirk Cousins coming in and taking over this team.
Wait, hold on a second. Wait, I need to jump in this on this.
Go ahead.
We need to. I think we need to stop talking about quarterbacks in the same manner.
Here's the point. I'm not talking about the individual. I'm talking about the amount of money you invested in one position.
Okay.
And the franchise turned on that point, just like it is turning today. This is an opportunity for this franchise either to become a New England Patriots or a Detroit Lions. Now you have 2 owners that are going to rely on internal people to make this decision. Rob Brzezinski is the only name I really know in that group that I trust his opinion. I trust how he knows things work. So I'm not saying that Cousins, the person, is the problem for this, but the amount of money that they saddled to that one position, I think the Will Sweaton looked and said, okay, we agreed to this monster deal for a quarterback, not Kirk Cousins, but a quarterback. We're investing this much in this position. And so as a result, we have changed the dynamic of this franchise. We gave it 4 years. This is what our GM told us was going to get us a victory and get us deep into the playoffs, and it did not. And so that's why it has come home to roost today, in my opinion.
And
Pierre, go ahead.
Well, the only thing I was going to the only thing I was going to say, and this is not me rushing to the defense of Kirk Cousins by any means.
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
But this is what I was going to say.
Apologist.
We need to stop talking about quarterbacks in terms of a win-loss record like they're a starting pitcher. It's not the same thing. You know, we keep talking about football being the ultimate team game, and yeah, the quarterback has a lot to do with that. There's no doubt about it. And when you look at it on paper, Kirk Cousins this year, over 4,200 yards passing, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, sacked 28 times. I mean, these are numbers.
Again,
I think a lot of teams around the league.
Wait a minute. You're missing the point here, though. Here's where
You're
the
talking
money
about
was
the
spent.
money, though.
You're actually
But here's the thing, if you have more
You're
money to
making
pay
your
an
own point.
offensive line,
Yeah,
then maybe that helps out.
And that's fine. But what I'm saying is, I think it's foolish to talk about a win and loss record in terms of place out on a quarterback like they're a starting pitcher. It's not the same thing.
I
It doesn't
agree
work
with
that
you
way.
to that point, because how about the defense giving up points before
That's
halftime or at the end
where
of the
I was going to go,
quarter?
but Pierre wouldn't stop talking.
I struggle with that.
That's what I'm saying is that because they elected, this is the way we're going. Now all of a sudden you have changed your course of direction. And you're saying that this position is worth 20% of our salary cap. Where you're saying, you just mentioned, you rattled off all those teams and all the positions that are available. And oh, look, we got this quarterback on a rookie deal. Oh, this one's only in year 2. Oh, this is cheap, so then we can buy other things. Well, the Vikings are like, excuse me, I'm getting all fired up, spitting up, choked up. But that's what I'm saying is they elected that, no, this is too valuable a position. We don't want to draft a quarterback and see if we could groom one. We wanted to pay for an experienced one, and they paid through the nose.
I get it.
That's all
I
I'm
get
saying.
it. I get it. I get it.
But it was also supply and demand at the time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we heard Case Keenum say, listen, this is a Jaguar, and they gave me the keys to it, and I'm riding around. Well, they wanted a professional driver, in their opinion, to come take over the team at the time. And he was the best person available. You know, it was a pure business decision. Look, this is what I have. We're going to pay for right now. But right, Jim, you're exactly right. That's what it was at the time. And they did not win with the keys that were in place. So now, you know, you have to dismantle the engine, so to speak. And they don't want to do a total rebuild, but it might be the kind of thing, if you want that analogy, where, okay, we fix the engine, next thing you know, we need new tires. I mean, it might have to trickle down that they do get rid of a lot of people, because you can't spend that money and then not have money to protect your quarterback, right?
Sure.
You look at the defense. Okay, if your starters are great, they're aging out, but who do you have behind them? We're seeing that there's a huge, you can say next man up all you want, but when there's a disparity so much in the level of talent, for that next man up, you're going to get yourself in a situation where you can't win now. So they have to balance the scales at some point. And I'm sorry, Pierre, you have to put that onto the dollar tag that went with Kirk Cousins. And hey, like anyone, you offer up me the on-air job, I'm going to take it, right? But it's up to you to keep your foot in the door. And I don't think Kirk Cousins has really shown in terms of 2 years out of the playoffs. Also, he looked great on paper, but some of the mistakes in terms of leadership and some other things, does he have what it takes to be the leading quarterback for this franchise? So there's a lot of those intangibles.
Leadership is another conversation altogether that we can have about Kirk Cousins. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, find me one team in the National Football League that's not going to pony up the dough for a starting quarterback. There's not a single one. You can get lucky and find a guy like Russell Wilson and get on a rookie deal, a cheap
Let's
rookie
swap
deal.
them out, right? Russell Wilson's not happening in Seattle, so maybe we can do that.
Hey, I mean,
right?
that's sort of, I mean,
they're on the hook for $26 million.
What I'm saying is Seattle was the benefit of a guy like Russell Wilson that they drafted and was still on a rookie contract, and they had the money to spend elsewhere on a quarterback rookie contract when they won the Super Bowl against the Broncos a number of years ago. So that to me, like, there's a little bit of luck involved here when you find a diamond in the rough like that. I mean, when you find a guy like Kirk Cousins and you paid him a lot of money, yeah, he might not be worth that kind of money maybe to some people, but at the same time, too, this is the premium position in the NFL. It's the premium position probably in all of sports, and there's not one single franchise in the National Football League that wouldn't pony up the dough to ensure that they have stability at the quarterback position. Not one.
So what would you do at the quarterback? Well, here's the thing, too. You mentioned Russell Wilson. He was a mid-round pick, too.
Right, third round.
His cap hit was below 1%. Kirk Cousins is about to make 21% of the cap space that the Vikings have right now. Looking across the National Football League over the last few years, Super Bowl quarterbacks don't take up a huge portion of the pie if we're looking at it like a pie chart. Not as big as Kirk Cousins. Well, I think that's what Jim was pointing to, is that if you want to reach the big game, you kind of have to hit everything, kind of all-encompassing, like Dawn said, with depth. You have to hit the nail on the head on every single thing.
That's because
you have to hit the nail on the head on every single thing.
It's not my fault Tom Brady made a poor financial decision to take less money and not take as much money.
The
with
man
the New
also
England
got
Patriots.
rings too.
That's fine. And he cashes in, and he made the smart,
anymore.
and he cashes in, off the field with all that and all the notoriety that comes with it.
But if you want to go in that direction too, then the Patriots drafted well because they have Mac Jones, okay, and he's going to be on the right.
He played 1 year.
Nobody
knows anything about Mac Jones at this point yet.
I know
Mac
he's
Jones
in the playoffs and this team isn't.
Despite Mac Jones, you watch that team play football? That team's not in the playoffs because of Mac Jones. That team is not in the playoffs because of Mac Jones. That team is in the playoffs because they play great defense and they run the football well.
How about the Bengals?
That's called synergistic
Joe Burrow is very
football.
good. Right? You're gonna take Mac Jones over Joe Burrow? I know you're not, Hobie. There's no chance you're taking him over Joe Burrow. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
All right, but you look at this, Pierre. Now Russell Wilson's making the big bucks.
Yeah, because that's how it was in Seattle. It's all great that we're winning Super Bowls now, but when everybody wants their paycheck,
there's no doubt about
changes.
It. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. Well, not this year, but in years past they were.
So much money in the quarterback.
But in years past they were. In years past they were still making the playoffs consistently.
So were the Vikings.
They made it one time in the last 4 years. That's not consistent.
But with any pro sport, right? Owners want to pay enough to compete, right? So are you going to be a middle tier or a high tier, right? Are you going to pay enough to compete to get people on the seats but not win anything? Or are you going to put the money out there to try to win? And let me tell you, the Wilfs did that. They put the money out there to try to win. They went for that brass ring and they missed and they fell, right? So now they've got to regroup. So they've got to do something. I don't know if Kirk Cousins is open to restructuring, but they've got to do something with that money, or that's just going to choke their hopes for winning now still right out of the race. That's my opinion.
I think it's going to say a lot about Kirk Cousins, whether or not he agrees to a restructure. It kind of will indicate to me whether he's serious about winning here or whether he's serious about
Well, he said he wanted to be a Minnesota Viking
Yeah.
whenever he was asked about it just yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
But he has never taken a deal from anybody. He forced Washington to franchise and tag twice. Came here, it was the highest paid contract. Then when they did extend him, it pushed him up again. So Kurt isn't giving anybody any hometown discounts to this point.
Yeah, but also more to Pierre's point, you are one of 32 starting quarterbacks in the National Football League. You have a skill that only certain people can be able to have. Right now, Adam Thielen is at the podium. We'll go to it live right now.
Yeah, first. Oh, hold up. Not ready for me yet.
They can't hear him, so they're testing some stuff. So tell them to hold tight for a little bit longer.
You can hear me?
Fixing some audio issues. We'll have Adam shortly.
Yeah, first of all, just to open up, just want to, thank Rick Spielman. Obviously, I wouldn't be here without him. And then, Coach Zimmer, obviously, a lot of respect for him and what he's done here. Obviously, I was here a year before him, and since he's got here, he's left it in this organization in a better spot, this team in a better spot, and the people he's brought here, the locker room. We have some really good guys and a lot of really good football players, but not only good football players, but good people off the field. So thankful for that and thankful for them. So would love to open up for questions that you guys have for me.
Hey, Adam, I'm sure that was a great opening statement, but we couldn't hear you on this side. So
Oh, no.
Still working on that.
They can't hear me.
That's Adam Thielen as we figure out some technical issues over at TCO Performance Center. We'll hear from him in just a little bit.
It's the beauty of Zoom.
We could hear him perfectly. It was fantastic.
We'll get more from Adam in a little bit. But this conversation just continues, guys. Where do you think this team goes from here? We've mentioned restructuring. We've mentioned the quarterback position. Where is step one, aside from hiring new people?
I would hire Jim Rich as my general manager, that's for sure. 100%.
You wouldn't get much of a paycheck.
Oh, yeah, no surprise there.
No free food either.
You don't want me as your GM.
No surprise there.
You look at where they have to go. All right, these guys took them to a point. As Mark Wilf said, they thanked him for building a foundation. And they did do that. You go back 8 years ago when Zimmer first walked in the door, it was a mess. And he turned this team to a playoff contender, but not consistently enough a winner. But now Adam Thielen has his audio fixed, so let's go back to hear his thoughts.
Thankful for that and all he's done. Coach Zimmer, obviously a lot of appreciation for him and a lot of respect for what he's done here. I was here a year before him, before he got here, and what he's done with this, with this team and this organization, he's left it in a better place. So brought a lot of great people, a lot of great men in that locker room, and a lot of great football players. So thankful for those guys and all they've done. Would love to open it up for questions that you guys have for me.
We'll go to Chris Thomason.
Yeah, hey Adam, thanks for doing this today. I know it's a tough day for you. I'm wondering if you can kind of describe what it was like today, who addressed the team, I guess Spielman did, and just what was the environment and the circumstances and how you kind of found out about the news today at the facility.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime you go through, this is my second time going through something like this, obviously with a coach change. It's tough because you build a relationship with all these coaches. Especially, Coach Zimmer being here for 8 years, 8 out of my 9 years I've been with Coach Zimmer. So obviously it's tough to hear that news. But at the same time, it is what it is, and we all have to look ourselves in the mirror. Like I always tell you guys, the first thing I do is I look myself in the mirror after a tough loss or after a season, after a win. Look myself in the mirror and say, what could I do better? I'm just thankful for this organization that we have great owners. We have a great ownership group that wants to win and wants to do whatever it takes to win. And we're all disappointed. At the end of the day, we're all disappointed that we didn't make the playoffs, that we didn't give ourselves an opportunity to make a run at a championship, because that's what we're all here to do. This state, these fans, they deserve it. So we're disappointed, and we're excited about the direction that we're going now. And we feel like we have a great foundation, a great locker room, and excited about after talking with the owners and having the leadership council be able to talk to them, and we're excited about what the future holds.
What was Spielman's kind of final message to you guys?
Just really just thanking everybody for all they've done, whether it be coaches, staff, players. I think obviously it was a tough day for him, a tough day for everyone. It's a lot to digest after a season. You're already digesting a lot, at the end of the season, but really just he just showed his appreciation to everybody and all that they meant to them and helping him try to do his job. And everybody had the same goal, right? Everybody was working their tail off, whether they got fired today or not. The last, however long they've been here, they've been working their tail off to ultimately win a championship. So it's a tough day, but that was his message.
Andrew Kramer and then Dave Campbell.
Hey, Adam, we just heard Mark Wilf say that the ownership had been mulling this for at least the past couple weeks. And I'm curious from the locker room's perspective, what's that been like over the last couple weeks as the season kind of ended there and were players kind of bracing for this inevitability here?
Yeah, I think as a player, you know it's a business, right? The players' side, guys leave, get cut, get traded, don't get re-signed, things like that happens all the time. You're kind of used to that in this business, that it's a results-driven business, that if you don't have results, there's going to be change. So you're always kind of braced for change. But at the same time, the last 2 weeks, I love the attitude of the coaches, the players. Everybody was fighting their tails off. Nobody knew it was going to happen at the end of the year, but everybody was fighting their tails off. You saw it yesterday. It was fun to see those guys go out there and compete and ultimately go out there and get a win. And you can tell by that, by the way that they played and finished it off, that guys weren't worried about what was going to happen today. They were just focused on doing their job to the best of their ability, getting better, and trying to help this organization get to the next level.
Adam, you've been in the league 9 years now. You got a pretty good idea what helps the team thrive and what doesn't work. What is the most kind of important trait or traits in hiring the next head coach? What would you hope to see? Yeah,
it's definitely not what I'm paid to do, but I think Mr. Wilf, the owners, hit it on the head. Just somebody who's a strong leader, a strong communicator, and a strong collaborator. Somebody who can collaborate and really, be able to lead the right way, to be able to get a group of men together for the ultimate goal. So I think that's why we met with them and we're able to feel really good coming out of those conversations, because I think everybody can agree on what they're looking for and what can take us to the next level. And that's just a strong leader, a strong communicator, and somebody that's willing to collaborate.
That was Adam Thielen speaking after the departure of Mike Zimmer and also general manager Rick Spielman from the Vikings, as they now move forward looking for new guys at those positions. And time now to give some final thoughts. Jim, I'll begin with you. Kind of go around. What's your overall takeaway from what we just heard?
Well, if I'm a Viking fan, I would be very nervous right now, because this is truly a crossroads. It's one thing when you change a coach because you still have the philosophy from above. Now that philosophy up above is gone as well. So now you're trusting two owners and their internal committee to make a decision that will set this team on its course for years to come. So this isn't like acquiring a player that doesn't work out and you cut them halfway through the season and you're still rolling. This is one that's really, I think, going to change the tune of this Viking franchise for years to come, because if they get it wrong, it's going to take a lot of work to dig themselves back out of this. So let's hope they've got the right guy and they can continue what Rick and Mike built to this point and get us over the top.
Dawn, what do you think?
I want to jump off that point too, because not only did they say that they want to get, obviously change at the helm and to say all the right things and have them work with people around the building, but also if ownership and people inside are making the thing and they don't want a total rebuild, you've got to be on the same page now as what the owners have and the people that are in there. And yes, we talked about Kirk Cousins' money, but they were throwing money around, remember, on the defensive side of the ball for all those extensions too, and some of those guys are aging out. So you have to have someone that can also buy in to what they're already saying. This is what's going on. So do they stick with the GM that kind of knows the plan, the drill, the layout? Do they go back? Do they go to Rob Brzezinski, who was a de facto GM before Rick Spielman even came in place? Or do they go for someone new? And like Jim says, then it is shaky ground all the way across. You can always say that we're not doing a total rebuild and then still do it. It's almost like when they come out and say, hey, he's my guy. That guy's getting fired, so things are about to change. And I don't know, there's people banding names around, like for GMs. I still don't know who the GM will be, but you hear Eric Bieniemy and now you hear Brian Flores. There's so many maybe guys that are going to be fired this whole week. I mean, I don't think Nagy's going to be on the short list, but Ron Johnson's not here to kind of make fun of that. But there's going to be names bandied about, but you have to have someone, and the key will be that will communicate and collaborate with what the owners want and what the money has already been spent. So that'll be a nice meshing to see what Indeed can do. And I think you might see a lot of changes of the personnel when it comes to the players on the field as well.
Obi, if I'm a Vikings fan, right now what I'm thinking is right now, and I mean right now is in right now in this moment. I don't care who the GM is going to be. I don't care who the head coach is going to be. What you need to know is, just like in the majority of all other sports, if you don't have the players to get you there, the head coach doesn't matter. The GM doesn't matter. As much as, if you watch, The Last Dance, and as much as a guy like Jerry Krause, who ran the Chicago Bulls, likes to think that management is the one that builds championships, it's not. It's the players. I am looking on the field. Who is going to be my quarterback? Who's going to replace perhaps a guy like Anthony Barr, who sounds like he's on his way out the door here in Minnesota at linebacker? How are we going to get better at corner? Who's going to be the opposite defensive end? Does Danielle Hunter come back fully healthy at this point? What does he have left in the tank at this point? Are we going to get better on the interior of the offensive line? The players is what I'm looking at. So I'm not worried about who the head coach is going to be and who the GM is going to be. I'm kind of waiting until March when free agency kicks off. And again, this is the problem we've been talking about all show long. The money is not there right now for the Minnesota Vikings to go out and spend in free agency. So that makes the NFL draft all the more important for this team this year. So pay attention to the players.
Who makes the pick, though, Pierre?
I don't know.
Makes the pick.
I don't know.
I don't know all of it.
I don't know. I don't know who makes the pick, and that's not my concern. Whoever they decide, they're a lot smarter than I am. They know the personnel in the league a lot better than I do, and I will allow them to make those decisions because I have no idea who they want as the GM and the head coach. But what I do know are the players. I know the players in this league, and I know who's worth a dang and who's not in this league. So that's what I would pay attention to if you're a Vikings fan.
And also, like Dawn said, they've kicked the can down the road a lot with a lot of these contracts. And at the end, now everything is just culminating into the situation that we have with the Vikings. And I know they want to say that this is not a complete rebuild because there are pieces here. But we've seen it on defense. We've seen it on offense. Depth is not a strong suit for this team. So who is taking that position is my question right now. But one thing I do know for sure is that the Wilfs have invested a lot of money in this franchise. You look at the new practice facility they have. You look at all of the money that they've invested in players. One thing they cannot afford is mediocrity. And that's what this team has been since its quote-unquote biggest moment in history, the Minneapolis Miracle. The team has been 34, 33, and 1. 34 wins, 34 non-wins since that time. All I know is that somebody needs to come in here, rattle some cages if they have to, because this is a team that does need some shakeups because at some point, people get a little too comfortable. That's not what this team can be built upon. You need someone who can come in and win and get this team into the playoffs.
And Hobie, I want to jump on that. It's not just getting into the playoffs. They want to win the big thing.
Yeah.
Right? They've backed their way into the playoffs.
They were on the cusp a few years ago.
Right. They've been blown out of the NFC Championship game. They need to take it the next step. And make no mistake, they want to win the Super Bowl. And that's what this is all about. If you're investing this kind of money, you want that brass ring.
Well, it's going to be a long road toward the Lombardi Trophy as it continues for the Vikings, still looking for that Super Bowl win. It will not come this season. 22 and beyond is where we're focusing now as the Vikings begin that path, looking for a new head coach and a new general manager.
Jim Rich for GM.
Is that the new campaign
You don't care
slogan?
who's GM, so I'll take the job.
So who's going to be
you're
head
the
coach?
I'm
the coach.
No, please don't hire me as the coach.
He's
Please
going to get
no.
gray hair by the
Please
end,
no.
just like Zimmer.
No, thank you.
He's going to be like the president.
Dawn and I will break that one down on the next streaming
I'll come
show.
up with a coach.
Thank you very much for
I got to
joining
do
us.
some interviewing.
For Jim Rich, for Dawn Mitchell, for Pierre Nugent, I'm Hobie RT. We'll see you all next time.